Thanks for joining me. Please like, subscribe, share my channel. I do appreciate it. Today I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to do what I'm calling a prequel video on my old YJ rock crawler standing behind me. And I'm going to do that because I do a lot of four-wheeling in this, and unless you four-wheel with me, you probably know nothing about it. So this way, you'll kind of get an idea of what I've done to it, where it's evolved to, and kind of what it's capable of. So I bought this Jeep as a rolling chassis and half of a trailer full of parts that went with it. So it was kind of like an erector set, some assembly required and batteries not included. But to start with, it's a 91 YJ. It's a salvage title vehicle, so this one was bought out of a junkyard. It had already been totaled. It was already a junk Jeep. So making it into a crawler, I didn't have to worry about it. I wanted something like this because things like my Cherokee Chief, you can't find body parts for it. It's rare. I don't want to go beat it up. This one is strictly to go out and have fun with and beat it up. Like I said, it was a rolling chassis. I added a bunch of tube to the roll cage, the frame, and tied it all into the rock sliders and everything together just for added strength. The engine I did in this one is a small block Chevy 350 with flat top pistons and throttle body fuel injection. The engine mounts I built for this are out of 120 wall tubing, and then they're bushinged, and I didn't just secure them to the frame, I also secured those engine mounts to the tubing that I secured to the frame, so it ain't falling out. Underneath I'm running a Turbo 400 K-case with a 5-to-1 Atlas and 1410 U-joint heavy wall drive shafts, and then on the skid plate it's some tube and some 1/4-inch plate. I back half the frame, took that arch out of the frame, put some TJ coil mounts in, and this also gives me a better approach angle. Before I welded the door bars in, I paneled the floor in where I raised it after setting the engine up and back a few inches. I also finished welding in all the seat mounts and bracketing. I did a quickie paint job, including a set of flames on the hood, and it was satin black, and now it's flat black, but that's okay. Before I put the seats and such in, I went ahead and wired the entire Jeep, as I do with all of them. Every connector, gauge, and light works and has worked ever since. This was back when I was still making some of my own brackets, but that has changed since then. This is a single triangulated 4-link rear suspension. The links are made out of 2-inch 250 wall DOM. The joints are 1.25-inch Johnny joints. You can see that pocketed joint mount up above on the frame. I also tried one in a cross member on the center section of the frame, but I couldn't get quite the anti-squat numbers I wanted, so I just stuck with the single triangulated 4-link. TJ coils on the rear into some brackets, and then I built some bump stops that seemed to work okay. The front suspension was Chevy leaf springs. They were from Alcan, and I used their Orbit eyes for those. They flex really good. You can also see the Heim joint steering linkage, which is 1.5-inch 1/4 wall DOM tubing that I fit and welded together with a PSC Hydro Assist. I also added some 35 spline outer axle stubs and some worn lockout hubs. A few other things I added. First aid kit. This is an ammo can. I also added this big storage box under the fuel cell in the rear. It holds quite a bit of stuff, and everything that I made for accessories or holding anything is made so it will not fall out in a rollover, including my cooler. It even has its own seat belt. This was pretty much the configuration on its maiden voyage, which changed quite a bit in a very short period of time. I did want to show this picture because you can see the transmission skid plate as well as the transfer case skid plate. Those were a little bit small. There's a lot of exposed things under the engine area and drivetrain area, and we changed those in a very short period of time. The skid plate changed in a very short period of time. I covered the entire engine and the transmission with an independent skid plate that is independent from the frame. It's all attached to the engine transmission. That way it moves together. It doesn't create a problem of stress on transmission or transmission mounts. It's strutted up into the engine, comes down, and then is strutted and made it into the cross member, not the frame. Now the belly pan is made out of 2x3-inch tubing with 3/8 plate welded to it, and it is independent of the cross member. So I bought all the parts to link the front end. I did a 4-link on it. You can see the adjustable coil brackets and all the weld together brackets. I got all this stuff from Ballistic Fabrication. The reason I went 4-link is I was just tired of augering those spring perches into everything I tried to climb, so I thought this would be a much better way. So off I go, welding stuff together. I did it the same way as the rear, all 2-inch 250 wall DOM, 1.25 Johnny joints. The upper links are about 75% of what the lower links are, and then I also built a truss, and all the tabs on the truss I actually got from Rough Stuff because they were the only ones at the time doing 3/8 thick tabs. Even though these coil mounts come adjustable, I always cut the adjustable sections off and I weld them in a fixed position based on the spring I'm using. On this particular one, I also welded them to that tube assembly that I welded to the frame in my cage. After a rough day on die trying, where I broke a steering box and it took a couple hours to get it off the trail and onto my trailer, I decided to go with a full hydraulic steering. So I got a double-ended ram from PSC. I got the 4-clamp version because I think they look cool. I built a very high tucked up low profile mount out of 3/8 steel and 1/4-inch steel. I also got to lose the track bar after this because the triangulated front end held everything in place. I also, after breaking a couple of these bolts on my high steer arms, kind of just built my own double shear system, which works fine, but they make better ones now. Eventually, I also broke front axles and I upgraded those to full chromoly with Yukon super joints, and so far so good. But after breaking a couple hubs, I also upgraded the lockout hubs to Yukon hubs. After a while, those silly little rock sliders I had just didn't cut it anymore, so I built these 3/8 plate boat sides strutted into the frame and welded to the old body armor that goes up to the door. And as tough as these are, I still have this problem where I lay it over and do body damage. So, oh well, they're good protection, but they only go so far. Another area where I seemed to not have enough protection was the lower links. The 2-inch 250 wall I kept bending, so I built some new lower links out of 2.25-inch 3/8 wall. I also added this differential guard, which has probably saved my bacon more than once on U-joints. Front and rear drive shafts I upgraded to these big tractor splines with 3-inch 250 wall DOM tubing. So far I've landed on them and I haven't bent them or broke them. This was something that has made this Jeep a lot tougher than it was when I first built it. One other cool accessory are these loops I welded to the axle. This is just for tying it down on the trailer. As tough as this Jeep is and as well as it works, it does weigh a lot, and no matter how tough you think you build it, you can still break things, which I can prove right here. I did break a 14-bolt axle, which I also broke the 14-bolt mini spool and took out the pins in the housing. I did order and replace that with some cryo heat treated ring and pinion gears and a for real big boy spool, so I'm hoping I don't break the rear end again. I just like this picture because it shows the rear end dropped out. The Jeep still cleans up fairly good with a little touch-up spray paint, but doing this on a regular basis, which I did drive out of, tends to beat them up a little bit. And climbing on these kind of rocks here will definitely test your drivetrain. One thing I keep really nice on my Jeep are the seats. I keep them covered. They're Mastercraft suspended buckets. This happens to be Dee Dee the Destroyer dog. She wanted to go four-wheeling, but because of a paw injury, she can't go today. And now we're on our way to 21 Road. 21 Road's just north of Grand Junction a few miles, and I really like this trail because it's a trail that anyone can do. The trail's down in a wash, and then it has a service road up above, so it caters to stock vehicles clear up to comp buggies. The Grand Mesa Jeep Club adopted 21 Road, and if you see that sticker here, which says 21 Road Towed, this Jeep Club also adopted a spadefoot toad, which is on the environmental watch list for endangered species. Now, no one had ever seen one of these toads on this trail, but some of the conditions where some of the stagnant water pools are could be where they would breed. Now, instead of fighting with environmental groups, the Grand Mesa Jeep Club started working with them, came up with a program and a plan, and after some post cable and some redesigning of where the trail goes, there's now toads on this trail, and it's a win-win for everyone. Back to some four-wheeling now. The big tire stuff is getting all their gear ready and unloaded. The smaller tire stuff is just waiting in the wings. This is Ethan's Jeep. He's a young friend of mine. He's a 17-year-old senior in high school, and he wanted some help with four-linking and stretching his Jeep. All I did was gave him instruction. He did all the welding, cutting, and fabricating himself, including the truss. It's got great anti-squat numbers, so we're going to see how it does. Luke's leading us today. He's in the big tire buggy in front of me there. There's going to be an intermix of big tire, small tire, buggy versus light-duty Jeeps, and that's okay on this trail because, like I said, this trail caters to everyone. It starts off in a wash, and it's got a service road, so as you're going through, if the obstacle becomes too hard or is beyond the capability of the vehicle, or if it's just something that the driver doesn't want to do, they can jump out of the wash, up onto the service road, and then back down into the wash when it is either more comfortable for them or it's more in their Jeep's abilities. Here you can see people up on that service road area. And then here you can see people looking down from the service road into the boulder field. Today's video, we're only going to be doing the lower section of 21 Road up to the second enclave. Everything past that is kind of extreme Jeep and buggy territory. So at this point, I'm just going to add some music and let you enjoy the wheeling. cookie dealer. This is the upper enclave. This is kind of where the trail ends for the full-bodied Jeeps that don't want to get body damage, or the non-buggy Jeeps. Everything up above here gets a lot harder. But here's a good picture of all the Jeeps that were on the trail today. We had a tail light get broken on one Jeep, and then we had a bent drive shaft we straightened on another Jeep, and that was it for damage. That's it for the trail ride today. Again, thanks for joining me. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I do appreciate it. Next video, we're going to start on a really cool series on my FC170, and we're going to do some more four-wheeling of the upper side of 21 Road. We'll see you next time.